February 26, 2011. A Canadian prison. 63-year-old Rock Thurio bleeds out on his cell floor from multiple stab wounds. His cellmate Hans guards the bloodied shiv and says, "That piece of shit is down on the range." Thurio dies, ending a life that terrorized dozens for over a decade. But Rock Thurio wasn't just any criminal. He led one of the most brutal cults in North American history, the Unsolved Kids. Between 1977 and 1989, he subjected followers to torture, performed amateur surgeries with kitchen knives, forced children to abuse each other, and murdered at least 2 people. He amputated limbs, pulled teeth without anesthetic, forced followers to break their own legs with sledgehammers, and even drilled into a dead woman's skull and ejaculated on her brain trying to resurrect her. This is the complete story of the Unsolved Kids. Viewer discretion strongly advised. This is dark. Rock Thurio was born May 16, 1947, in Quebec, Canada. Intelligent but arrogant, he taught himself English just to prove his superiority. After stomach surgery left him with chronic pain, he became obsessed with religion and health. He joined the Seventh-day Adventist Church and discovered he had a gift, charisma. He could persuade anyone. By EJTT, Thurio convinced an entire group of Adventists to quit their jobs, abandon families, and form a commune under his leadership. He called himself Moses in French, and proclaimed himself a prophet. The group became known as the Unsolved Kids for their tireless work ethic, but the church quickly kicked them out for bizarre behavior. Thurio's solution: moved deep into the Canadian wilderness. In 1978, he took his followers to a remote mountainside in the Gaspé Peninsula. He called it Eternal Mountain and claimed the world would end in February 1979. They needed to prepare, to purify themselves, to suffer for salvation. Life in the commune was brutal. Primitive shelters, back-breaking labor, scarce food, but Thurio claimed suffering was necessary for spiritual purification. Cut off from the outside world with no phones, no contact, the followers had only his version of reality. When February 1979 came without an apocalypse, Thurio just said he'd miscalculated, and his followers believed him. That's how complete his control was. Then the real abuse began. Thurio drank heavily despite preaching abstinence, and his violence escalated. He suspended followers from ceilings by their arms for hours, plucked out their body hairs one by one over days, defecated on them. But worse was coming. Thurio became obsessed with amateur surgery. He tied followers down, fully conscious, no anesthesia, and performed operations using kitchen knives, pliers, or he pulled out teeth, removed fingers and toes, amputated limbs. Most followers lost body parts to his sadistic procedures. He forced members to break their own legs with sledgehammers, made them sit on lit stoves, had them shoot each other in the shoulders, forced them to eat dead mice, feces, and rotting food. Thurio married every female member and fathered 26 children with them. But these kids received no love or protection. They were born into a nightmare. Thurio would nail disobedient children to trees and have other children throw rocks at them. He held infants above open fires, hung children by their feet for hours, rolled naked babies in snow. At least one infant died from exposure after being kept outside overnight in freezing temperatures. Another infant, Samuel Jageri, died when Thurio drunkenly decided to operate on the crying baby. Using no sterile equipment, he sliced open the infant's abdomen. The baby died. But Thurio wasn't arrested. Not yet. His control was so complete that no one reported it. One follower stands out, Gabrielle Belli. She eventually brought Thurio down. But first, she suffered more than almost anyone. Thurio ripped out 8 of her teeth with pliers, snapped off her finger with his bare hands. Then came the worst. He tied her to a table and sawed through her arm with a hunting knife, amputating it at the shoulder. No anesthesia, unsanitary conditions. Gabrielle nearly bled to death, but she survived, and in August 1989, she finally escaped, hitchhiking to a hospital north of Toronto. When medical staff saw her condition, missing arm, missing teeth, covered in scars, they contacted authorities. Gabrielle told them everything. The horrifying truth was finally exposed. Before Gabrielle's escape, another woman became victim of Thurio's most infamous act. Solange Boylard complained of stomach pain. On September 28, 1988, Thurio tied her naked to a table. With no anesthesia, he punched her repeatedly in the stomach. Then he forced a plastic tube into her rectum with molasses and olive oil. Using a kitchen knife, he cut open her abdomen and ripped out part of her intestines with his bare hands. He ordered Gabrielle to stitch her up with regular needle and thread. Solange died the next day. Then it gets worse. Theriot claimed he could resurrect her. He had followers saw off the top of her skull. Then Theriot and other male followers ejaculated onto Solange's exposed brain, believing this would bring her back. When it didn't work, he removed one of her ribs and wore it as a necklace. They buried her body near the commune. When Gabrielle reached that hospital, police had the testimony they needed. Theriot was arrested for assault and received 12 years. But authorities searched for Solange's body. When they found it, evidence of murder was undeniable. He was charged with second-degree murder. The trial exposed the full horror. Gabrielle testified about the torture, forced surgeries, child abuse, and Solange's murder. In Ijojo-sen, Theriot was convicted and sentenced to life, with no parole until 2000. But incredibly, some female followers remained loyal, visiting him in prison. He fathered 4 more children while serving his life sentence. On February 26, 2011, Theriot's cellmate, Matthew Gerard MacDonald, attacked him with a homemade shiv, stabbing him multiple times in the neck. Theriot bled to death on the floor. He was 63. Many felt he got what he deserved, dying violently, experiencing a fraction of the pain he inflicted for over a decade. Gabrielle Lavelli wrote a book about her experiences and has spoken publicly. She lost her arm and years of her life, but she survived. Her courage in coming forward saved others. How did Theriot maintain control? First, isolation, moving deep into wilderness with no outside contact. Second, exhaustion dawn to dusk. Labor left followers too tired to think critically. Third, fear and violence. Public torture created terror where obedience was survival. Fourth, incremental escalation. He started with belts and apologies, gradually normalizing extreme violence. Fifth, religious manipulation, convincing followers their suffering was divinely ordained. And finally, breaking family bonds, forcing them to torture each other, made them complicit. The Anthill Kids represents one of the darkest chapters in Canadian history. Roch Theriot tortured dozens, murdered at least 2 including an infant, and destroyed countless lives. The survivors deserve respect for their courage in speaking out. The lessons: charisma isn't virtue. Isolation is a red flag. Suffering isn't purification. Apocalyptic thinking is dangerous. And speaking up saves lives. Gabrielle's decision to escape ended the nightmare. So what do you think? How did Theriot maintain control for so long? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you found this informative, hit that like button, subscribe for more collaborations, and turn on notifications. Remember, always question authority and never surrender your critical thinking. Thanks for watching. This was dark, but these stories need to be told. Stay safe out there.